Not all visitor centers are boring, especially in the Smoky Mountains. Come join us and learn why you might want to make one of your first stops in the Smoky Mountains a visitor center. Welcome to Bear Facts, where we explore the Smoky Mountains one bear fact at a time. Okay, so now maybe you're thinking, how can a visitor center be worth my time when I'm in the Smoky Mountains? I mean, it's a visitor center. I hope they might have a map maybe and a bathroom. So why should I seek them out? Well, not all visitor centers are boring, and some might have a few tips to make your visit to the Smokies even better. This video is about the visitor centers of the Smoky Mountains. I'm not going to go into great detail about them, but I'll give you an overview of what services they provide, what you can experience at each of them, and to let you know which ones I suggest making the extra effort to go. So let's get started. First thing first, there are 4 official National Park visitor centers inside the Smoky Mountain National Park. There are 2 other visitor centers that are close to the park, but they aren't officially recognized as inside the park. I'll get to them later and give you a little information about them. The 4 I am going to talk the most about are the Sugarland Visitor Center, Cades Cove, Clingmans Dome, and the Oconaluftee Visitor Center. I can't tell you how long it took me to be able to say that word, so there, I said it. Now, the park isn't putting these buildings here just to fill up space. They actually have an important purpose. One is to provide guests with information and guidance about the park and allow visitors to purchase park passes. And the other most important thing is to allow visitors to go to the bathroom. And how they go about their business is going to be a little different for each place. Oh my God, Oliver, I wasn't talking about that kind of business. You're such a silly bear. Anyway, each visitor center also has a small shop, some are larger than others, or store where you can buy cool souvenirs and maybe even get some snacks or some food. You never know when you're kind of running low on blood sugar and you need some water to keep you hydrated. Also, this is a newer addition to all of the visitor centers, but they all have 24-hour parking tag machines outside their doors. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, the Smoky Mountains initiated a parking tag fee for park guests who plan on leaving their vehicle for more than 15 minutes at a time. Whether to take a hike, walk around the area, or take a picnic, you need one of those tags. The machines will allow you to purchase them using a credit card anytime you want, 24 hours a day, all that stuff. You can purchase a 1-day or 1-week tag from the machines. If you want an annual tag, you'll need to actually go into one of the visitor centers where you can purchase an annual tag. Thank you, Oliver, for your wonderful help there and telling us about the prices. I could have done without the sarcasm, though. Thank you. Now, not all visitor centers are the same, and some have different operating hours, and some aren't even open in the winter. The 2 centers that have the most reliable hours of operation are the Sugarland Center and the Oconaluftee Visitor Centers. Let's start with the most popular and most visited of the 4 centers. The Sugarlands Visitor Center is located near Gatlinburg. It's at the intersection of U.S. Highway 441 and Little River Road. The building that houses the visitor centers is one of the biggest of all, and it has a lot to offer the guests. Yes, Oliver is correct. The bathrooms at these 2 centers are open year-round and all have flushing toilets. The Sugarland and Oconaluftee also have sinks and water fountains. But don't expect those luxuries once you enter the park. Most of the rest areas are, how do I say this, bio-friendly? Just make sure you are clutching your cell phone, because if it falls into that deep well of disgustingness, just say goodbye to your phone, because if anything falls in them, you're not going to want to get it back for any reason at all. I will warn you that the Sugarland Visitor Center is not only the busiest as in pedestrian walking, but also cars. There's a lot of traffic in this area, and parking can be a challenge. During the fall leaf peeping season, we actually had been stuck in traffic outside that area for up to a half an hour more, trying to get past the center to just leave the park. And this can be highly frustrating and somewhat confusing because it's like, I don't understand. They actually did some road work on the area in 2013 that was supposed to alleviate some of this problem. Obviously, it didn't work. Anyway, this area can be a bit of a bottleneck. And yes, Oliver is right. All of Gatlinburg can be a bottleneck to the Smoky Mountains. So be aware that traffic can be a monster in this area. So what can you find at Sugarlands? I mean, why is it so popular? Well, the Sugarland Visitor Center was built in the 1960s and has a lot to offer for the guests. There's a museum inside that showcases all of the wildlife and plants that live in the Smoky Mountains. You can read up on the history of the park, look at a large 3D map, and find interesting fun facts, as well as you can talk with knowledgeable park employees who can give you advice or help you learn about the park. You can also purchase maps of the area, and you can find maps that might focus on the best places to find wildflowers or the best waterfall trails. There's a lot of great information packed into these maps that you can't get from the internet because there's no internet reception once you're in the park. So it might be a good idea anyway just to grab one of those maps to have a physical one on you. The center also has a large souvenir shop where you can get cool t-shirts, toys, books, and a few snack items. One of the highlights for many visitors to the center is access to the Cataracts Falls. This waterfalls is only a 0.7-mile walk behind the center and offers guests easy beginner trail to the 40-foot falls. Though some argue it's only 25 feet. I've never measured it, so I can't say. Though it's not as spectacular as some of the other bigger falls in the park, it's a great way to stretch your legs and take your shorter leg companions for a walk. Your kids, not your dogs. Dogs are not allowed on most of the trails in the park, though they are allowed to stretch their legs around the visitor center. So let's head on over to the Oconaluftee Visitor Center. This one is not as well visited. In fact, it's usually pretty quiet when we go there, but in its own way, it has far more to offer than Sugarland. The reason why many people don't end up getting to this one is that it's on the other side of the park in North Carolina. It's actually only 2 miles from Cherokee, North Carolina, on US Highway 441. That can be a very long 30-mile drive through the Smoky Mountain National Park. Hence the reason a lot of people don't end up getting there or don't try to get there. But this visitor center has some really neat things. Sure, they have a small store inside, a little museum, and they have bathrooms as well. They also have great staff that you can talk with and learn more about the park. But they have something really cool. They have elk. There you go, Sugarland. Oconaluftee beats you every time. Yes, you heard me correctly. In the early mornings and late evenings, guests can actually get a really good chance of seeing wild elk. In 2001, the national park reintroduced 25 elk to the area. Since then, the population has grown to over 240 elk. The elk are often spotted right along the road leading up to the Park Visitor Center, and you can often see them in the fields in the front of the center. The Oconaluftee Center also has something else that's really unique. Behind the center is a full-size or scaled mountain farm museum. This is an open-air museum that showcases historic Appalachian farm life. It features a collection of 10 historic buildings that had been relocated from different parts of the park. Guests are invited to walk around, look inside the buildings, and take a look at what life used to be like for early settlers. You'll find buildings such as an apple house, a barn, smokehouse, and other various smaller buildings and structures. One of the buildings, built in the 1940s, was actually a park ranger station until the visitor center was actually opened. Once it was opened, the building became part of this farmstead and is still being maintained as part of the historic site. The last two visitor centers are more popular due to their location than their size. I know size shouldn't matter, but they really are tiny. But I'm going to talk about them either way. The first I'm going to talk about is the Cades Cove Visitor Center, not to be mistaken with the Cades Cove General Store. If you're not familiar with Cades Cove it's an 11-mile loop road that takes you through a small community of buildings, an area that was left from when the park was established. Park visitors come to Cades Cove to explore the buildings, hike on trails, and try to spot the wildlife. And yes, you are very likely to spot Oliver on the hunt for garbage cans. Now, I had actually thought the general store at the entrance of Cades Cove was the visitor center, but it's not. So let me help clarify that for anyone else who had that same misconception. The general store is at the entrance of the park, and it's a grocery and souvenir shop for the campground. The visitor center is actually halfway through the 11-mile loop road. So you actually have to enter Cades Cove to get to. There are bathrooms there, a small gift shop and museum, as well as staff to talk with. Right outside the center, you'll find a small cluster of buildings, including an old grist mill. They're part of the visitor center's property. Of all the visitor centers, this is one of the most underwhelming building, but it's there in case you need it. I would suggest making sure you do stop at the general store, because that one actually is a little bit more interesting. People are always raving about the ice cream here, and you can get hot dogs and some other stuff, as well as really cool t-shirts. I like their shirts. The only downside to the general store is that they're closed in the winter. So sad. The final of the 4 visitor centers inside the national park is the Kauai Visitor Center, formerly known as Clingmans Dome. Though Clingmans Dome, the monument is still there, the mountain is now called Kauai. This center is known for being near the highest elevation in the Smoky Mountains, near the summit of Kauai along Clingmans Dome Road. And I apologize if I'm not saying that right, but I'm trying. I'm sorry. It's a very long 7-mile drive up to the mountain road, which you can access off of 441 across from Newfound Gap. It's open seasonally, and it's the only visitor center that can be closed for months at a time. And Oliver will give you some more information about that below. As with the Cades Cove Center, this one is not big, and though you can find a defibrillator outside their doors, a few snacks and trinkets, doesn't have anything else really. It doesn't have the museum, it doesn't have anything spectacular about it. It's a really, really small place. However, it's there in case you need to talk to someone, get some water, or if you want to try to get a souvenir. However, honestly, if you're at Clingmans Dome, you're not there for the visitor center. No, you're there for the spectacular views, and probably most likely the bathroom as well, because like I said, that was a long drive. There are 2 other visitor centers that I'm going to point out. One is over in Townsend. That one has a lot of the information, the same stuff you'd want as part of this national park, but it's not in the park. It definitely is focused on the park. The other one is actually kind of on the border of the Smoky Mountain National Park. I say that because it's in the spur, which is a road that's between Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge that's actually part of the park. The Gatlinburg Visitor Center is situated right there on that edge. And it's important because of what it offers. They have maps of the park, information about the park and stuff like that, and there are some bathrooms. But what makes this center an important one is 2 things. One, it's free parking, and 2, you can get to the trolleys from the center. If you're visiting the area and want to avoid the high cost of parking in Gatlinburg and want to enjoy the free trolley service in Gatlinburg, then make it a priority to head to this visitor center. I'll leave a link in the description if you want to learn more about the trolley service in the area. Okay, so there's only 2 other things I'm going to point out about these centers before I say goodbye. The first is about concealed carry. You are actually allowed to conceal carry in a national park. However, any federal-owned building, which is in the national park, you're not allowed to carry. So just be aware that visitor centers are considered federal buildings. So go with that. I mean, I think you could figure out what I'm trying to say there. Bathrooms are a gray zone. Not sure about that. I would definitely look it up before you walking around in the bathrooms. Okay? Anyway, back to the other thing. The last thing is pets. Think that a big park like this would be like, oh, let's have pets and have them run around. No, that's not the case. For the most part, there are very few places that pets are allowed in the national park, and most visitor centers around the area, as long as you clean up after your little critter, they're okay with it. But trails and stuff like that, they're a no-go. So just keep that in mind. Look for the rules and learn more before you bring your fur baby with you, because it's actually kind of limiting what and where you can have them out. So there you have it, all you need to know about the visitor centers of the Smoky Mountain National Parks. I hope this video helps you learn more about the Smoky Mountains or helps you plan your next own trip. You're getting an honest review from our personal experiences, but facts and things change, so please keep us in the loop if you learn anything new and want to share your experiences in the comments. Thanks again for visiting us at Bear Facts of the Smoky Mountains. Please click that like button and subscribe to our channel.